Sometimes you see a headline about a new virus, and you think it's just a health story. But every now and then, it's so much more. It's a spark that lights up this massive, complex picture of global security, national strategy, and believe it or not, a high-stakes rivalry between superpowers. So let's break down how one single virus can actually expose a global power struggle.
So get this. On December 11th, 2025, health authorities over in the United Kingdom confirmed something that the scientific community had been keeping a close eye on, the emergence of a brand new strain of Mpox. But this wasn't just some minor little tweak or mutation. No, this was something different.
What they found was what's called a recombinant strain. So what on earth does that actually mean? Well, think of it like the virus just reshuffled its own genetic deck. It took some of the scariest parts of the more severe clade I virus and mashed them together with the more contagious parts of clade 2. And the implication? Well, it's pretty chilling. You could potentially get a virus that has the worst of both worlds. This constant evolution has huge implications for how bad the disease could get and how ready we are to respond.
And that response, of course, it immediately kicks off a race to make sure we have effective vaccines ready to go for a new and, frankly, unpredictable threat.
This quote from David Dudd, who's the CEO of the biotech company GeoVax, just puts it perfectly. He says, viral evolution does not pause. And that's it, right? We simply can't afford to get complacent. Viruses are always changing, always probing for weaknesses. And this discovery is a massive wake-up call that our preparedness has to be just as dynamic.
Okay, so this new strain exposes a major strategic problem. Right now, our global vaccine supply chain is incredibly fragile. It basically relies on one single provider for the whole world. Think about that. That creates massive risks for national security, for market stability. If that one supply chain gets disrupted, what happens then? And this is exactly why companies like GeoVax are racing to develop a US-manufactured alternative, something that can secure our own domestic needs and also help meet global demand.
It's really easy to look at all this and see it as just a public health issue, a straightforward race against a pathogen. But what if this race is just one tiny piece of a much bigger competition?
Because when you pull back the curtain, you start to see that this isn't just about medicine. What we're actually looking at is a geopolitical battlefield. And biotechnology is one of the most critical territories being fought over right now. This quote from a Wilson Center report just reframes the entire situation. The fight against Mpox, the push for vaccine independence, all of it is happening in the shadow of this incredibly intense rivalry between the US and China for technological dominance. It really is a race for the ultimate high ground. Look, we hear all the time about AI and semiconductors, right? And don't get me wrong, they are absolutely critical. But the Wilson Center report argues that biotechnology might just be the most consequential field of all. We're talking about the power to read, edit, and literally write the programming language of life itself. That is an almost unimaginable level of power.
And this gets to the absolute core dilemma of biotechnology. The technology itself is what's known as dual use. On one hand, it holds the key to unbelievable medical breakthroughs and economic growth. But on the other hand, that exact same power, the ability to genetically manipulate microorganisms, could also be weaponized. That poses an enormous risk to global security. It's a true double-edged sword. So, how does this high-stakes competition affect our ability to prepare for the next crisis? Whether it's another recombinant virus like this one, or something we haven't even seen yet. Well, here's the danger. When you have two superpowers locked in a race, the pressure to innovate faster and faster can be overwhelming. That drive to outcompete at all costs can lead to cutting corners, to serious lapses in security protocols and judgment. And the result, as the report warns, could be an accidental catastrophe, something far worse than what we were trying to prevent in the first place. But it's not a hopeless situation. Experts have some very clear recommendations. First, just acknowledge the dual-use risk. You can't fight a threat you won't even name. Second, deep and sustained diplomatic engagement between the US and China is absolutely essential. And third, scientists and officials from both sides have to cooperate specifically on safety, on protocols, to tackle the risk of an accident. The very competition that's driving the danger could, maybe, be channeled into creating a safer world, if the will is there. So, we end right where we began, with this new Mpox strain. It's a biological reality, but it's also a political symbol. It's a reminder that the next global crisis could come from a petri dish or it could come from a diplomatic breakdown. And it leaves all of us with a really critical question. In this new era, are we truly prepared for the complex threats that lie right at the intersection of biology and geopolitics?